I'll recognize the chairman who waved on to the subcommittee today, Mr. Johnson, who's a good friend of mine, and I also look forward to, thank you, I want to thank you for calling this hearing on Thursday in East Palestine. And I appreciate, thank you for your leadership. I think it was long overdue, and I appreciate you taking the initiative, and I look forward to participating.
Good deal.
So, all right, very good. I recognize you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and you will certainly be welcomed with open arms there in East Palestine. Thank you. And thanks for letting me wave on today. I appreciate our witnesses being here for such an important topic when we're talking about America's supply chains. I'm very pleased that my legislation, H.R. 5398, the Advancing Tech Startups Act, was included in today's legislative hearing. The bipartisan legislation would require the Department of Commerce to study and report on the impact of technology startups on the U.S. economy. It also promotes a national strategy for encouraging more tech-focused startups and small businesses in all parts of the United States. You don't have to be in Silicon Valley to successfully launch a tech startup. I'm an entrepreneur myself. That's a different story. But the talent, sustainable cost structure, and opportunity are available in many locations across the country. Additionally, I'm proud to co-lead H.R. 5390 with my colleagues, Reps Miller Meeks, who you just heard from, Bouchon, Custer, Schreier, and Spanberger. This bill requires the Department of Commerce to study and report on products that are in high demand across the critical infrastructure sectors. Importantly, the bill includes feasibility studies for manufacturing products representative of many rural counties in my district in eastern Ohio. I know that manufacturing in these communities can and should play an increased role in making products for critical infrastructure sectors and in our nation's supply chain. As we know, the pandemic painfully revealed the importance of creating products, supply chains, and intellectual capital right here at home. We can't rely on China or anyone else, and we don't need to. While we must ensure our supply chains are resilient in a global economy, we must also be self-sufficient in critical areas. It's time to fully unleash the American spirit of innovation and entrepreneurship across the entire United States. Mr. Slaughter, in your opinion, would a national strategy such as the one described by my legislation, the Advancing Tech Startups Act, that identifies barriers and encourages more tech-focused startups and small businesses in all parts of the United States, would that help to better prepare our economy for future disruptions to our manufacturing sector and supply chain?
I think it would. I think a lot of the appeal of crypto and blockchain in particular is you can do it from anywhere. Many of our portfolio companies at Paradigm are largely or fully remote. There's the possibility of having tech jobs throughout the entire country, including those looked over regions that have not benefited from Web 1 and Web 2.
Good. Did the pandemic impact the success of tech startups?
Inherently, I think it impacted all of us. Everyone had to respond differently to the effects of disruption and to the effects in the markets. But I think many of us came through it with a greater appreciation for how we can respond to additional disruption in the future as well.
Do you have any other recommendations for increasing the resiliency of our supply chains?
Such a good question. It's somewhat beyond my ken, but I would suggest the number one thing is to make sure that you don't involve supply chains becoming the province of a few companies that control the information. Mm-hmm. The worst thing would be to have a few more companies that, because they control the entire data stream, become black boxes and rent seek on everybody else. Yeah. Better to have this throughout the entire economy so everyone can benefit.
Yeah, I agree. I personally believe that we should restrain from outsourcing anything in our supply chain below the minimum amount required to sustain our own culture here at home. We need to identify what those critical needs are and keep a focus on that. Ms. Gazarian, you mentioned in your have I got that right? Did I say that right?
You got it right.
Thank you. You mentioned in your testimony that shifting supply chains is not costless and does not happen overnight. What advice do you have for other companies and particularly startups looking to center their supply chains through American companies and products.
Absolutely. I would say the first thing is you really need to do your homework in regards to the resources that you need to build your products and stay at the quality, safety, and efficiency level to make sure that if you are going to produce something here, you can do so safely. Then on top of that, are the costs effective to be able to stay competitive in the market with your competition that may still be producing elsewhere?
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Chairman, I've heard from many manufacturers that that tell me the quality of the raw materials they get from countries like China, even though China is dumping excess capacity on the global market, trying to disenfranchise American workers, the quality of their raw materials. Sometimes companies have to order 3 and 4 times as much so that they can get just enough to meet their needs. Even though China holds the market on those raw materials, their quality simply is not there. We can beat them at this game if we're smart. Thank our panelists, and I yield back.
Agreed. Oh, well, I would just want to thank the panel for all your direct responses.